African most industrial economy is facing one of its toughest moments in recent years. South Africa's rand has been ranked as the world's worst performing major currency after suffering a sharp decline against the US dollars following an unexpected interest rate decision by the South African Reserve Bank. At the same time, the country continues to grapple with widespread anti-immigrant protests that have forced thousands of African migrants to flee and raise fresh concerns about investors' confidence and regional relationships. Is South Africa facing an economic storm? And what does this mean for the rest of Africa? Let's take a closer look. The South African rand came under heavy pressure after the country's central bank surprised financial markets by leaving its benchmark interest rate unchanged. Most analysts had expected a rate increase to help contain inflation and support the currency. Instead, the decision triggered a sharp market reaction. The rand fell by more than 2% against the US dollars, making it the worst performing major currency globally during that trading session. Government bond yield also climbed as investors reassessed South Africa's economic outlook. Although the currency has stabilized somewhat in recent days, it remains under pressure from a combination of global factors, including a stronger US dollar, softer gold prices, and investors' caution ahead of major international monetary policy decisions. For ordinary South Africans, a weaker rand can have real consequences. Imported goods become more expensive, businesses face higher costs, fuel prices can come under pressure, and inflation may become harder to control. But South Africa's economic challenges are not limited to the financial market. The country is also dealing with one of its largest waves of anti-immigrant demonstrations in years. The protests, driven largely by frustrations over unemployment, crimes, and pressure on public service, have led to the attack on some foreign-owned businesses and increased fear amongst migrant communities. Since May, more than 160,000 foreign nations are reported to have left South Africa as tensions have intensified. Several African governments, including Ghana, Nigeria, Malawi, have organized repatriation efforts for their citizens. While many South Africans argue that undocumented immigrants must be addressed through stronger border controls and better enforcement of immigration laws, economists caution that violence and instability can create new economic problems. Many sectors of the South African economy, including agriculture, construction, retail, logistics, hospitality, depend significantly on migrant labor. Analysts warn that large-scale departures could disrupt supply chain, reduce productivity, and weaken economic growth. Research also suggests that migrants make an important contribution to South Africa's economy. From a Pan-African perspective, the situation presents an important lesson for the continent. South Africa remains one of Africa's largest economies and a major destination for investment, trade, and skilled professionals from across the continent. Its success has never been built by South Africans alone. For decades, entrepreneurs, engineers, doctors, teachers, trades, and workers from many African countries have contributed to South Africa's development while also supporting families back home. At the same time, South Africa faces genuine domestic challenges, including high unemployment, inequality, and slow economic growth. Addressing those issues require effective economic policies, job creation, stronger institutions, and secure borders. However, many observers argue that long-term prosperity is best achieved through lawful immigration management and regional cooperations rather than violence or hostility towards fellow Africans. A stable South Africa benefits not only its own citizens but also the entire continent. As Africa moves towards a deeper integration through initiatives like the African Continental Free Trade Area, maintaining stability, investors' confidence, and peaceful relationships among African nations becomes increasingly important. South Africa now faces two major tests at the same time. One is economic, restoring confidence in the rand and strengthening growth. The other is social, finding lasting solutions to immigration, unemployment, and community tension while protecting the rule of law and human dignity. How the country responds will shape not only its own future but could also influence Africa's broader economic and political landscape. What do you think? Can South Africa restore confidence in its economy while addressing immigration challenges in a way that protects both national interest and Pan-African unity? Let's know in the comments section. If you enjoy this report, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more in-depth coverage of African economic, geopolitics, and Pan-African affairs.
We have witnessed outbreaks of anti-migrant sentiment and incidents of intimidation and violence directed at foreign nationals, and incidents that have been quite sad and abhorrent, where people have been injured and some people have died and lost their lives.
Is Africa becoming divided at a time when it needs unity the most? As thousands of African migrants leave South Africa following weeks of anti-immigrant violence, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has issued a powerful appeal to the continent. Speaking before the Pan-African Parliament, Ramaphosa called on African nations to work together to tackle migration, conflicts, and poverty.
We have witnessed outbreaks of anti-migrant sentiment and incidents of intimidation and violence directed at foreign nationals. As the South African government, I want to make it clear, we have taken a firm stance against any form of intimidation, vigilantism, or violence directed at people from other countries or other nations.
While condemning the recent attacks on foreign nationals. But will his message be enough to heal the growing divide between South Africa and the rest of Africa? Let's take a closer look. Addressing member of the Pan-African Parliament, President Cyril Ramaphosa acknowledged the recent attacks on foreign nationals shared challenges that no single country heal the growing divide. He called on African leaders to strengthen cooperation in addressing conflict, instability, poverty, unemployment, and social tension, factors that continue to drive migration across the continent. According to Ramaphosa, irregular migration should not be viewed simply as a border issue. Instead, he argued that African governments must confront the root cause that forces people to leave their homes in search of safety and better economic opportunities. His remarks come after weeks of anti-immigrant protests in South Africa, where some groups have blamed undocumented migrants for rising unemployment, crime, and pressure on public services. The protest has sparked violence in several communities, leading to deaths, injuries, and growing diplomatic tension in other African nations. Protests in South Africa. From a Pan-African perspective, The current crisis raises difficult but important questions. How can Africa speak of continental integration under the African Continental Free Trade Area, promote the vision of Agenda 2063, and encourage Africans to trade, invest, and work across borders if Africans do not feel safe in other African countries? For decades, millions of Africans have crossed borders to study, build businesses, fill labor shortages, or escape conflict. Their movement has helped connect African economies and strengthen cultural ties. At the same time, the government has a legitimate responsibility to manage immigration, protect national security, and ensure that migration takes place within the framework of the law. The challenge is ensuring that concerns over undocumented migration do not turn into hostility towards people simply because they come from another African country. Pan-Africanism has always been built on the idea that Africa's greatest strength lies in solidarity, not division. The violence has also placed South Africa under increasing diplomatic pressure. Several African governments have criticized the attacks on their citizens. Nigeria has demanded answers following the death of one of its nationals while in police custody in Cape Town.
South African businesses in Nigeria, like MTN, MultiChoice, etc., should be nationalized and the proceeds/shares be used to pay Nigerians and Nigerian businesses who have suffered losses in the xenophobic attack in South Africa.
Meanwhile, countries including Ghana, Nigeria, and Malawi have organized efforts to assist citizens returning home after feeling unsafe in South Africa. President Ramaphosa described the attacks as sad and abhorrent, expressing regrets to the lives lost and reaffirming his government's opposition to xenophobia and what he called Afrophobia, hatred directed at fellow Africans. He insisted that South Africa remains committed to protecting everyone living within its borders, regardless of nationality. The current crisis is about far more than migration. It's about the future of African unity. If Africans begin to see one another as competitors instead of partners, the dream of continental integration could face serious setbacks. But if African governments work together to create jobs, strengthen legal migration systems, improve border cooperation, and protect the rights of every African citizen, this difficult movement could become an opportunity to build a stronger and more united continent. As Kwame Nkrumah famously envisioned, Africa's future depends not only on the strength of individual nations, but on the unity of the continent as a whole. What do you think? How can African countries protect their borders while also preserving the spirit of Pan-African unity? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this report, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notification for more in-depth analysis of African politics, economics, and the future of the continent.